I was sprawled on the couch, half watching some mindless reality show, when my phone buzzed against the coffee table. Ethan was in the shower, his off-key humming drifting through the apartment we'd moved into just 3 weeks ago. I grabbed the phone, expecting a meme from a friend or a work email I could ignore until morning. Instead, the screen lit up with a number I didn't recognize. Asterisk, ask Ethan where he was last night. Asterisk, my thumb hovered over the delete button, but then a photo loaded. A grainy shot of Ethan at a bar, laughing, his arms slung around a woman I didn't know. My stomach twisted. I sat up, staring at the image. His dark hair, that easy grin I'd fallen for 8 months ago. It was him, no question. But last night? He'd said he was working late, some deadline crunch at the architecture firm. I'd bought takeout for one and crashed early, no reason to doubt him. Now, though? I zoomed in on the woman, blonde, pretty, her head tilted toward him like they shared a secret. My chest tightened, but I forced a laugh. Probably a prank. Someone from his office messing with me. I typed back, asterisk, who is this? Asterisk, no reply. Ethan emerged from the bathroom, towel around his waist, hair dripping. You okay? He asked, catching my expression. I held up the phone, keeping my voice light. Got a weird text. You at a bar last night? He frowned, stepping closer to squint at the screen. Oh, that. Yeah, some of us grabbed drinks after the deadline. That's Sarah from marketing. Why's it blurry? His tone was casual, like he was explaining a grocery list. I nodded, letting it go, but something gnawed at me. His jacket on the chair, the faint whiff of something floral when he'd tossed it there last night. Not his cologne. I tried to shake it off. Ethan wasn't the cheating type. Steady, reliable, the guy who'd spent 3 hours assembling my IKEA bookshelf without a complaint. We'd built something solid, or so I thought. But an hour later, as he scrolled through his phone in bed, mine buzzed again. Same number, asterisk, check his phone. You'll see. Asterisk, my heart thudded. I glanced at Ethan, his face lit blue by the screen, oblivious. I waited until his breathing slowed, until the room went quiet with his sleep, before slipping out of bed. His phone was on the nightstand, passcode-free, trust, he'd called it. I swiped it open, guilt prickling my spine, and scrolled through his texts. There it was under Sarah M. Asterisk, last night was fun. Let's do it again soon. Asterisk, sent at 1:07 a.m. My mouth went dry. I scrolled up. Nothing flirty before that, just work stuff. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe. Then I checked his photos. No bar pics, but a selfie from last week. Him and Sarah at a conference, too close, her smile too bright. I set the phone down, hands shaking, and dug through his jacket pockets. A receipt slipped out. Dinner for 2, timestamped 10:42 p.m. Last night. He'd said he was at the office. I didn't sleep. By morning, Ethan kissed my forehead, oblivious, and left for work. I sat there, replaying every word of his excuse, every glance I might have missed. Who was sending these messages? A coworker with a grudge? Sarah herself playing some game? I grabbed my laptop, downloaded a burner app, and traced the number. It took 10 minutes, 10 agonizing minutes of error messages and dead ends, before the truth hit me like a punch. The number linked to an old account, one I'd blocked a year ago. Julian. My ex. The guy I'd spent 2 years trying to love, then another year trying to forget. Controlling, intense. The kind of man who'd text me 10 times if I didn't answer once. I'd dumped him after. Well, after a mess I'd buried deep, changed my number, moved cities to escape his orbit. How had he found me? My fingers trembled as I dialed, his voice picking up on the second ring, smooth and smug. Hey, Lila. What the hell are you doing? I snapped, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. Saving you, he said, like it was obvious. I'm not the bad guy here, Lila. Ask your boyfriend where he really was. He hung up before I could respond, leaving me staring at the phone, my pulse racing. Julian, back from the grave of my past, stirring up trouble. But why? Revenge? Jealousy? I remembered his eyes, dark and unyielding, the way he'd watch me like I was his to keep. I thought I'd outrun him. I was wrong. I paced the apartment, the photo of Ethan and Sarah burning in my mind. Was Julian right? Was Ethan lying? Or was this some twisted game, Julian pulling strings to mess with me? I opened my texts, typed a dozen drafts to that anonymous number. Asterisk, leave me alone. What do you want? Asterisk, and deleted them all. I couldn't let him know he'd gotten under my skin. Not yet. But as I sat there, the silence pressing in, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Julian wasn't done. And whatever he had planned, it was going to hurt. I couldn't look at Ethan the next morning without seeing that photo. His arm around Sarah, her smile cutting into me like a blade. He was at the kitchen counter, sipping coffee, scrolling through his phone like nothing was wrong. I wanted to believe him, wanted to trust the man who'd held me through panic attacks and laughed at my terrible cooking. But that receipt, that text from 1:07 a.m., they gnawed at me. I set my mug down harder than I meant to and said, "We need to talk about Sarah." He looked up, eyebrows lifting. "Sarah? From work?" His tone was light, but I caught the flicker in his eyes, surprise, maybe guilt. "What about her?" I held up his phone, the text from her still open. "This. Last night was fun. Sent after midnight. You said you were at the office." My voice stayed steady, but my hands were clenched under the table. Ethan put his coffee down, leaning forward. "Lila, it was drinks with the team. I told you that. She's just a colleague. You're blowing this out of proportion." He sounded calm, reasonable, but then he added, "I've been distant, okay? Work's been brutal. But I'm not cheating." "Distant?" I laughed, sharp and bitter. "A dinner receipt for two isn't distant, Ethan. It's a date." I slid it across the table, watching his face. He picked it up, frowned, then sighed. "That was with a client. Sarah was there for the pitch. Check my email if you don't believe me." He pushed his laptop toward me, but I didn't move. His defensiveness only made it worse, like he was hiding something behind all that logic. We argued for an hour, voices rising, until he grabbed his keys and said, "I need air. You're paranoid." The door slammed, and I was alone with my doubts. I should have checked his email, should have dug deeper, but my phone buzzed before I could. That same number, Julian's. No text this time, just a notification. A package delivered downstairs. My Gott Dank. I bolted to the lobby, grabbed the small padded envelope, and tore it open back in the apartment. Inside was a USB drive, nothing else. My hands shook as I plugged it into my laptop. The video started grainy, shaky, someone's phone footage from a crowded party. Music thumped, voices blurred together, and then there I was, a year ago, swaying in a corner. Drunk, laughing, my hair a mess. A guy I didn't even remember leaned in, and I kissed him, sloppy, reckless, unmistakable. My breath stopped. I'd buried that night, a stupid mistake during a weekend Julian was out of town. I'd never told him, never told anyone. A month later, I'd ended it with him, claiming we'd grown apart. But I knew why I'd run, guilt, shame, the weight of my own hypocrisy. The video cut off and my phone lit up. Asterisk, "You're no better than him." Asterisk, Julian's words stared back at me, cold and accusing. I threw the phone across the room, my chest heaving. How did he know? How had he gotten this? I paced, replaying that year, changing my number, moving cities, blocking him everywhere. I thought I'd escaped his grip, his suffocating need to control me. But he'd found me, and now he had proof. I grabbed my laptop, desperate to figure out how deep this went. I logged into my old social media, the accounts I'd abandoned after the breakup. Nothing public linked me to Ethan, to this apartment. But then I saw it, an email from months ago, a password reset I hadn't requested. He'd hacked me, watched me rebuild my life. My skin crawled. I checked my current accounts. Nothing obvious, but the unease grew. Had he seen me with Ethan? Tracked my posts, my check-ins? The apartment felt too quiet, too exposed. I tore through it, searching for anything out of place. Under the couch, behind the TV, nothing. Then I checked the bookshelf, the one Ethan had built. A tiny black dot stared back from between two novels. A camera, no bigger than a button. I ripped it out, wires dangling, and screamed, "You bastard," to no one. Julian had been here, in my space, my life. Watching. Ethan came back that night, his face tight. "We good?" he asked, voice clipped. I nodded, forcing a smile, but I couldn't meet his eyes. The video looped in my head, me a cheater judging him. I wanted to tell him about Julian, about the texts, but the words stuck. What if he asked why Julian hated me so much? What if he saw that footage? I mumbled something about needing sleep and turned away, his presence a weight I couldn't shake. Later, alone in bed, I stared at the ceiling. Julian wasn't just messing with Ethan. He was coming for me. That camera meant he'd been close, maybe still was. I thought of his voice, that smug calm, and realized this wasn't about saving me. It was about breaking me. And the worst part? He was right. I wasn't better than Ethan, wasn't clean. I'd lied, run, pretended. Now my past was a noose, and Julian was tightening it. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Not with him out there, waiting for my next move. I woke up with Julian's video still clawing at my mind. My lips on that stranger's, a betrayal I'd buried so deep I'd almost convinced myself it never happened. Ethan was already gone, his side of the bed cold. A sticky note on the counter saying he'd be late again. I should have been relieved for the space, but all I felt was dread. Julian wasn't done. That camera I'd ripped from the bookshelf sat on the table, a dead eye staring at me, proof he'd invaded my world. I smashed it with a hammer, shards scattering, but it didn't stop the panic rising in my throat. I tried to focus at work, hunched over my graphic design tablet, tweaking a logo for a deadline. My phone stayed silent, no texts from that cursed number, but the quiet felt like a trap. Then my inbox pinged. An email from Ethan, subject. Asterisk, what is this? Asterisk attached was a photo, me, laughing with some guy at a bar, time-stamped last month. My heart stopped. I hadn't been to a bar in weeks, and that wasn't me. It was a fake stitched together from old pics, my face photoshopped onto someone else's body. Julian's work. I typed a frantic reply. Asterisk, it's not real, I swear. Asterisk, but before I could hit send, Ethan called. Lila, what the hell's going on? His voice was sharp, edged with something I hadn't heard before, distrust. I got this from some random email. You said you were at home that night. I was. I snapped, my pulse racing. It's fake, Ethan. Someone's screwing with us. Who? Why? He didn't wait for an answer. This isn't just about Sarah, is it? You're hiding something. He hung up, leaving me clutching the phone, my hands trembling. I wanted to chase him down, explain everything, Julian, the texts, the video. But how could I without admitting what I'd done? That I'd cheated first, that I'd lied to him from the start? It didn't stop there. An hour later, my boss called me into her office. Lila, we've had a complaint, she said, her tone clipped. A client says you've been unreliable, missing deadlines, sending incomplete files. What's going on? I stared at her, dumbfounded. I'd submitted everything on time, triple-checked. She slid her laptop toward me, emails supposedly from me, apologizing for delays that never happened, files I'd never touched corrupted. My stomach dropped. Julian again. He'd hacked my work account, twisted my life into a mess. Fix this, she warned, or we're done. I stumbled out of her office, my career hanging by a thread, and checked my phone. A new text from him. Asterisk, come back to me, and this stops. Asterisk, rage flared through me, hot and blinding. He wasn't just exposing me. He was dismantling everything I'd built. Ethan, my job, my sanity. I couldn't let him win. I had to fight back. I spent the afternoon digging into Julian. I pulled up his old social media, the accounts he'd barely used when we were together. Now they were a shrine to his unraveling, rambling posts about betrayal, cryptic jabs I knew were aimed at me. Asterisk, some people don't deserve happiness. Asterisk, I found a mutual friend, Jess, who'd stuck by him after the breakup. I called her, voice tight. What's he been up to? She hesitated. He's not okay, Lila. Lost his job 6 months ago. Started obsessing over you. Said you ruined him. Her words hit like a slap. Ruined him? I'd left because he'd suffocated me, because I couldn't breathe with his jealousy choking every move. But now I saw it, he'd never let go. He'd been waiting, plotting, turning me into the villain of his story. Ethan came home that night, his face a mask of exhaustion. We need to talk, he said, dropping another bomb. He'd gotten an anonymous email, a snippet of text, me supposedly confessing to a fling. Another lie, but it didn't matter. I don't know what's true anymore, he said, voice breaking. Are you cheating? Were you ever honest? I opened my mouth to deny it, but the video flashed in my head, my guilt undeniable. I stammered, it's complicated, and he walked out again, slamming the door. I sank to the floor, my life crumbling. Julian had turned Ethan against me, poisoned my job, left me isolated. But that text, asterisk, come back to me, asterisk, lit a fire. He thought he could corner me, force me back into his cage. No way. I grabbed my laptop, started searching for proof, his posts, his hacks, anything I could use. I found an old email thread from when we dated, him bragging about sneaking into my accounts for fun. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I wasn't the girl who'd run from him a year ago, scared and ashamed. I'd messed up, sure, but I wasn't his puppet. He wanted a war. I'd give him one. I just didn't know how dirty he'd play, or how much I'd lose before it was over. I'd had enough. Julian had torched my relationship, trashed my job, and left me jumping at shadows in my own apartment. His last text, asterisk, come back to me, and this stops asterisk, burned in my brain, a taunt I couldn't ignore. I wasn't going back. Not to his control, his mind games, his warped version of love. I'd lost too much already, but I wasn't powerless. I had proof, his posts, that old email about hacking me, the smashed camera. It wasn't airtight, but it was enough to hit back. I just needed him to slip up to show his hand. I spent the morning plotting. Ethan hadn't come home last night, his silence louder than any fight we'd had. My boss had emailed a final warning. Shape up or ship out. Julian had me on the ropes, but I wasn't down yet. I opened my phone, typed a message to his number. * meet me. Noon, the cafe on 5th. Let's talk. * I hit send, my heart pounding. He'd come. His ego wouldn't let him say no. I got there early, picked a table by the window, and set my phone to record, hidden under a napkin. The cafe buzzed with chatter, perfect cover. I wore sunglasses, kept my head down, but my nerves were electric. At 11:58 he walked in. Same Julian, tall, dark hair messy, that intense stare that used to pin me in place. He slid into the seat across from me, smirking. Knew you'd cave, he said, voice smooth as poison. I'm not here to cave, I shot back, keeping my tone even. I want you to stop. The texts, the emails, all of it. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. Why should I? You're a liar, Lila. You think Ethan's the problem? Look at you, cheating, running, pretending you're better than me. His eyes gleamed like he'd rehearsed this. I clenched my fists under the table, willing him to keep talking. You've been watching me, I said, loud enough for the mic to catch. Hacking me, planting cameras. That's not love, Julian. That's sick. He laughed, low and bitter. Love? This isn't about love anymore. It's about fixing you. You ruined me, left me like I was nothing. I lost my job, my friends, everything because of you. Now you get to feel it. But I'm generous. I'll stop if you come back. We were good once. Fixing me. I snapped, letting my anger flare. You're delusional. You've been stalking me for a year, faking photos, screwing with my life. Say it. Admit what you've done. His smirk faltered, then hardened. Fine. Yeah, I watched you. Hacked your accounts, sent Ethan those little gifts. You deserved it. I saw you with him, playing house like you didn't destroy me first. I'm making it right. His voice rose, jagged, and heads turned. I had him. I stood, grabbing my phone. We're done. He lunged, snagging my wrist, but I yanked free and bolted out, his shout. You can't run forever. Echoing behind me. My hands shook as I played the recording back in my car. It was gold, unhinged, incriminating, everything I needed. I went straight to the police. The officer listened, stone-faced, as I laid it out, the texts, the camera, the audio of Julian ranting. He's been stalking me, I said, voice steady despite the tears prickling my eyes. I'm not safe. They took my statement, copied the evidence, and by evening, I had a temporary restraining order. Julian couldn't come near me, couldn't contact me. I'd won for now. But victory tasted like ash. Ethan came home that night, bags packed. He stood in the doorway, eyes red, holding a USB drive. My USB, the one with the video. Found this on your desk, he said, voice flat. Watched it. You and some guy kissing. When was it, Lila? Before me? During? I opened my mouth, but he cut me off. Doesn't matter. I can't trust you. Not after this, not with all the lies piling up. It was before you, I blurted, desperate. A year ago with Julian. I messed up, but I never cheated on you. He's been sabotaging us, faking stuff, turning you against me. I pointed to the restraining order on the table. I stopped him. Ethan shook his head, slow and final. You should have told me. About him, about this. I can't do it, Lila. I don't even know who you are anymore. He walked out, the door clicking shut, and I crumpled onto the couch, sobbing. I'd beaten Julian, but Ethan was gone. The one good thing I'd had, ripped away by my own past. I moved through the next day like a ghost, replaying it all. The police called. Julian had been served the order, warned off. But his last words at the cafe stuck. You can't run forever. As I packed Ethan's leftover stuff into a box, my phone buzzed, a blocked number. I froze, then deleted it without reading. Julian might have been legally caged, but his shadow wasn't gone. And I was alone now more than ever. Weeks had passed since Ethan walked out, since I'd shoved Julian back into the shadows with that restraining order. The apartment was mine now, his books gone, his coffee mug boxed up, the silence so thick it pressed against my chest. I'd lost him, lost my job too. My boss had followed through on her threat after one too many mishaps Julian had orchestrated. I was adrift, a ghost in my own life, but I wasn't broken. Not yet. I spent those first days waiting for the next hit. Every buzz of my phone, every knock at the door made me flinch, expecting Julian's next move. The police had him on a leash, but I knew him. His obsession didn't bow to paper orders. I'd check the locks twice, sleep with a kitchen knife on the nightstand, wake up to nightmares of his voice. Asterisk, you can't run forever. Asterisk, but as the weeks dragged on, the texts stopped. The emails dried up. Maybe he'd finally burned out. Or maybe he was just biding his time. I couldn't keep living like that, jumping at ghosts. I had to move to claw something back. One night, I sat on the floor, surrounded by the wreckage of my old life. Sketchpads I hadn't touched in months, pencils scattered like bones. I'd been a graphic designer once, good at it, before Julian's chaos swallowed me whole. I picked up a pencil, my hand shaking, and started drawing. No plan, just lines, jagged, messy, spilling across the page. It felt like breathing again. The next day, I applied for freelance gigs. Small stuff, logos, flyers, things to keep me afloat. My portfolio was rusty, but I poured everything into it, staying up until dawn to finish a design for a local cafe. They hired me, paid me, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Julian couldn't touch it. Ethan couldn't take it away. I kept going, sketching every night, rebuilding what I could. Ethan crossed my mind too often. I'd scroll his social media sometimes, late when I couldn't sleep, see him smiling with friends moving on. I wanted to hate him for leaving, for not fighting for us, but I couldn't. I'd lied by omission, sure, but still a lie. That video, my drunken mistake with Julian still in my life, had cracked us open. He deserved the truth, and I'd held it back, scared of losing him. Irony's a bitch. I lost him anyway. One night, I sat on the couch, a glass of wine in hand, staring at my latest sketch, a bold, abstract mess of lines and curves. It was raw, ugly, beautiful me. My phone buzzed on the table, a blocked number flashing. My stomach clenched. I'd deleted dozens of those messages unread, refusing to let Julian back in. This time was no different. I swiped it away, took a sip of wine, and kept my eyes on the drawing. He didn't get to win. Not tonight. I thought about calling Jess, asking if he'd moved on, but I didn't. I didn't want to know. Knowing gave him power, kept him real. Instead, I got up, walked to the window, and looked out at the city lights. They blurred through the glass, 1,000 lives I'd never touch. I wasn't whole, maybe I'd never be. Julian's shadow hung there, a faint chill I couldn't shake. Had he given up? Was he watching from some dark corner? I didn't know, and for once I didn't care. A knock rattled the door, soft but sharp. My heart jumped, but I didn't move. It came again, then stopped. I waited, breath held, until the silence settled back. No note, no sound, just gone. I could have checked the hall, could have called the cops, but I didn't. I turned back to my sketchpad, picked up the pencil, and drew. A new line, strong and deliberate. Whatever was out there, whoever, I wasn't running anymore. This was my space, my life, and I'd fight for it one stroke at a time. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with Lila's wild ride to the end. What did you think? Did she really escape Julian, or is he still out there waiting? Drop your theories in the comments. I read every single one. If you love this story, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next twisted tale. Got a story idea you want me to tackle? Let me know below. Until next time, keep chasing your own lines. See you in the next video.